So we talked about sales, and now we're going to talk about marketing. You know, there's a difference between sales and marketing because, um, well, sales is obviously just like directly making contact and then attempting to persuade a customer to purchase something, right, through your human interaction. Marketing is when you are basically storytelling and sending out messaging about your brand or services company, and then persuading people to take an interest in purchasing or going direct to purchase. If it's like a retail product, then people, they go from marketing to um, clicking on a button and buying. So the marketing and sales process is pretty much one and the same, right? uh, but for freelancers, for independent contractors, you know our marketing always leads to a conversation, and the conversation becomes the sales process, right? So really, like, when you're doing marketing, you want to think, how am I going to entice somebody to be interested in talking to me, right? I think sometimes people confuse marketing with sales, and they're like, oh, I need somebody to see my ad and click on it and give me money. You know what I mean? But to be honest, purchases in the thousands of dollars, like $1,500 and up, is a lot harder for people to just spend that money without talking to somebody or having some sort of process, right? Especially because it's a service. It's not a physical product. It's not like you just press a button and there's like a really expensive jacket or purse that comes to your house, you know? So one thing that a marketer or somebody had said to me once, that I forgot where I got it, but it was just really, really helpful to understand this concept, is that when you have an advertisement or when you're marketing or something, you're not selling, you're not marketing the sale, you're marketing the click, you're marketing whatever like the very next action is, right? So like if I make an ad, it doesn't have to convince you to buy the whole course, let's say. It has to convince you to click on the learn more, right? Or contact or schedule a call or whatever it is, but that's the action. And so you have to really hyper focus your messaging in a way that gets that specific goal, that specific action, because the action of doing a sale, like as we saw in the sales process, there's more steps that go into it. So you're never going to convince somebody of all those steps just from an advertisement. That's why you do the whole process of the sales process. Now, I think there's sites where they do, like, especially the ones that do like bulk animation, like from India and stuff like that. Like they do like couple $100 or $500, sales for little explainers or something, like, or even like maybe like on, Fiverr or Upwork, you could probably get somebody to do a sale immediately. Like, but when we're talking about, again, in the thousands and more, like, you're going to have to talk to people. So, you're going to, as you go, you're going to be developing your soft skills of talking to people and building rapport and learning how to communicate. But you're also going to build your storytelling and marketing skills. So, and a lot of the stuff I'm talking about isn't really in the deck right now, because this is stuff that I've, kind of just learned more about or thought more about how to communicate since I made this, which is why we do the live challenge. I think the other thing about marketing is that, what I tell my clients is, like, the difference between like a commercial and a movie, even though they could visually look the exact same, right? The tools, the storytelling tools that are employed, from cinematography to camera movement to acting and set design and all that stuff, the tools are like the exact same. The only difference is that in marketing, there has to be a goal attached to it. There's a result that is being attached to it that you want from your audience. Because when you make a movie, you just want them to feel something, or you want them to, you know, see things differently, or you want them to ask questions. You want to have an emotion. But with marketing, that doesn't work unless it also translates into a sale eventually. So that's why marketing is different from you know, filmmaking. So, and then also when it comes to marketing, you know, it's not just about making advertisements. Everything you do outwards is a form of marketing. When you are talking about yourself, or talking about an idea, or your service or products or whatever, that's all marketing. So marketing activities can involve, you know, making commercials, to making, you know, decks, to making your website, your reel, tweeting at people, you know, putting Instagram posts up, engaging in, you know, like forums, and then eventually, you know, getting people into just your funnel or sales process. That's all marketing. So any questions so far? I think, okay. So there's really two types of marketing, in my opinion. There's short-term marketing and there's long-term marketing. The difference is that short-term marketing is basically a campaign, because there's a beginning and end to it. Usually it could be like story-based is really good, which I'll go into more, but long-term marketing is over a period of time with no end date, and it's consistent, right? Consistent contact with your audience, and you're adding value over time. This is especially for, now we're talking specifically about, you know, filmmakers, videographers, you know, video marketers, because, you know, if you're not adding value to people's lives, then you're not really going to build an audience or loyalty or a reputation, because our industry is a service industry, and that service is always adding value to people's lives, you know, whether it is you know, directly through our services, or if it's through our advice or perspective, you know, that's all value that we're adding to a client's life. So, you know, you always want to think about it that way. And then when you're beginning, you know, you want to keep it simple, you know. I'm talking from a challenge point of view of starting your business, you know, essentially from scratch, right? When you're starting out, you are, you know, learning so many things. I mean, it's quite a lot of, it could be overwhelming if you really think about all the things that you need to learn. You know, from not just you always constantly leveling up your actual production skills, but, you know, all the stuff we cover, like learning sales, learning how to brand yourself, learning how to, you know, develop soft skills and communicate with people and ask questions and build proposals and budgets. I mean, it's a lot. So in my opinion, you always want to keep things simple. It's funny because the better I get, the more that I can keep things simple. I guess it's funny how that is true. Like, it is very much like translates across industries and disciplines, you know, like this idea, almost like a martial arts idea or something like that. Like, you know, like when you're starting out and you're looking at the flashy things, and you want to do like all this stuff, and, you know, look cool and feel cool and stuff like that. And then as you get more experience and older, you're able to identify what out of that stuff that you don't need to do, and just to be more effective, you know. But also just psychologically and for your own like mental health, keeping it simple is a great way to live your life. Because believe me, life will always make it more complicated for you, no matter how much you try to keep it simple. So I think striving to find a way to live in a simple manner, which is just kind of sticking to what are the most valuable things, what are your priorities, I think is the way. This is the way. And, you know, so with marketing, when you're keeping it simple, I think that, you know, what I'm going to teach you is about how to market yourself. And you don't try to get like crazy with it yet. You don't want to try and do some campaign that you're designing like it's like a Pepsi Cola campaign or like a political campaign or something with all these different moving parts and stuff. Like you can just start by telling the story of your journey. And the reason why I kind of make that a thing and it's something I discovered for myself is that, you know, when you're doing a video business, you're really selling yourself. You are the product and the service, right? You are the brand. So, and it's a very human business. It's human to human. And so, the more that humans know each other's stories, the more that we like each other, the more that we, at least the more that we understand each other, and then we can respect each other and like each other. So, you know, I started just kind of experimenting and just sharing my journey, you know, and being open about what I'm working on. And it started working wonders for me, you know, me just telling my journey, because when I worked for my dad and I wasn't doing any work or video work for a long time, and when I came out and I was starting from scratch again, I just kind of made it a point to like tell my story like as I'm going. So, you know, some people, you know, who want to do a YouTube channel or are very organized, they'll do that journey, they'll vlog, they'll do the whole thing on social media and stuff. I just kept it to Facebook, because that's where my audience was. I didn't really have any, I didn't use Twitter, didn't really use Instagram. And this is where my friends were. So, but you can do it on any platform. This principle applies to literally every social media platform, where you have, you know, your own control over your platform, right? So you could do TikTok, doesn't matter. So the point is that you are telling the story of yourself and allowing people to follow you on this journey. And the cool part is, as they watch you grow, it has the same exact effect as any celebrity that you've grown up with, that you've watched grow, that you've, you know, known about them and been part of their journey, right? Like we love seeing other people, especially people we admire. We love seeing how they develop and learning what's going on and all that stuff. That applies to you too. So you know, you want to learn to tell your story, which we'll get into. Another simple way to market yourself is highlight others and just add value to their lives. This is a really good way to market and build relationships, because you're really marketing yourself as a member of a community, as a valuable member, and somebody who helps other people, right? And by highlighting them, by adding value to their lives. So you know, resharing other people's work, or starting a podcast and interviewing people, or you know, helping them, answering questions, providing resources, sharing links, you know, anything that you could do to add value to their life, whether it's educating them, helping them professionally, or just amusing them, entertaining them, or making them feel something, is going to add value to their lives. So you know, when you're using social media, I think a lot of people think in terms of marketing, like just saying what they want to say and getting their message out, but actually you want to add value to other people's lives. And the more that you do that, the more that you're going to get back. Because I kind of noticed, like I would notice like some people that I'm friends with or whatever, and how like some of them like only put posts where they talk about themselves and what they've done, and you know, what they're accomplishing. And you know, even if they're nice people, like it could get a little tiring, you know what I mean, depending on their frequency and stuff, like and or you know, like people will only highlight others like when it's in relation to them. You know what I mean? Like if somebody does something successful, they're like, oh, here's this photo of me with this person. Congratulations. So happy for you that this thing happened. And here's me when I met them in 2009 and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like always about them. And they're not highlighting others when they don't have that ability to make sure that they get a spotlight too, you know, and that's a little bit disingenuous, you know. And that brings me to engaging like a human, which is that, you know, we should treat each other like humans and be a human, and you know, which means not pandering and not just engaging just to get something for yourself that you want. Like you could just engage to just for the sake of having a human experience, right? Also, like another part of keeping it simple is just being consistent, you know, which means I usually recommend just 1 to 2 platforms maximum, because you're going to be so busy building your business and stuff that it's really, for a one person show, it's pretty inconceivable to like build up your video skills, build up your sales skills, do the sales work, do the proposals, and execute the jobs, and be on, you know, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat all at the same time, right? Like that's just ridiculous. Like you need to, again, keep it simple. So I would pick 1 to 2 max, where you are consistently engaging. Now, you know, there's people, they'll do things, you could set it up where like, you know, you can have, you know, coding trigger like sharing, like you could have it on these platforms, but I think it's pretty obvious when you're just resharing. Like if you're not also posting and interacting with people and stuff on a platform, you're not really using that platform properly, you know? Because I tried that in the past where I would just have like, you know, a Facebook post automatically get sent to my Twitter account, and you know, it's just the way it's reshared just shows that you're just like kind of botting it, you know what I mean? And I think that doesn't have the right effect for people. For the people who use a platform a lot, they want that content to be, you know, organic as possible and you know, human. So being consistent, I think, means keeping it simple in a way. I still use Facebook as my primary marketing, just because, again, my connections are there. It's really easy for me to make an announcement and then get engagement from people. Or especially, I think what's really powerful in Facebook is the Facebook groups. You know what I mean? Because they're, you know, mostly real people that you're interacting with. You know, the groups have special interests, so that's very targeted. And they can be very engaged if you're in the right group. Now, the last thing I'm going to say as an overview is that, you know, before you ask for something, make sure you engage, which means, you know, talk with people, like, share, comment, ask questions. You could even DM and just offer like support, you know, things like that before you ask for anything. Because the worst kind of marketing, or it's really the straddling marketing and sales, like the worst kind, which we've all seen, is when you just get some copy and pasted message through LinkedIn, right? Where it's just like so obvious that they've already sent that message to a bunch of people. And so I've never had a high ratio of response in that manner. In fact, I'm pretty positive from what I've seen with all my students that the ratio is like almost 0, you know, maybe 1%. But, you know, if you actually engage and they get to know who you are, just your presence online before you ask something, that you have a much higher ratio of response. And I've had some great engagement from that. All right, so I think the first thing you want to do is you want to create your own simple short-term marketing plan, which is to be used for 1 to 3 months at a time. You know, I think step 1, I mean, you know, for us in the challenge in the beginning, you're going to have to follow certain steps because, again, don't try to do everything at once. So number 1 is create your social media if you haven't. You could establish them, but pick like 1 to 2 to main, which is like you're actually using them. You could reserve like handles and stuff on platforms. That's totally fine. You know, but you have to figure out, oh, I guess I need to add this now. I'm sorry, not Snapchat, TikTok. So damn, isn't it funny how Snapchat just completely disappeared so easily? I bet you they wish they sold to Facebook now. That guy could have been super rich, but he thought he could take on Zuckerberg and his army. So hey, that's it. High stakes games. So you know, basically the way you want to pick is you want to figure out where your audience is, right? So depending on your niche and your industry, they just have different places that they mostly reside. You know, like if you're doing music videos and lifestyle videos and fashion videos, you're probably going to find them on IG. You know what I mean? If you're trying to work with other marketers or infomercial people or vloggers or something, then YouTube. You know, if you're trying to work especially B2B and like kind of in a corporate professional environment, then LinkedIn might be it. So you have to, this is part of doing your research when you were getting to know your ideal customers, is figuring out where they hang out, you know, and just go live there. You will get the best results if you do that. So step 2, after you've established it, is spend minimum 3 days a week updating. Okay. And by the way, it doesn't take long. You could literally spend 10 minutes on each of those 3 days to update something, or 15 minutes. It's not that much at all. And for people who don't want to do it, I would say that it's a mental hurdle that you should just jump over, because it's not that much work, and it's really important to consider this part of your standard activities as a entrepreneur. Right? So I recommend starting with the journey story, which is basically what I call your way of expressing these bullet points, your journey. So basically what your goal is, why you're doing it, how you hope to grow from it, celebrate your milestones. These are all like different posts, right, that you could have, and ideas. You can highlight your struggles and talk about how you had a solution or a win. You could ask for advice or input as you're going along. You could share your passions and inspirations, and then you can comment and engage with others, right? So basically, like, I'll give you examples of each. So a story in the beginning, what you want to do is you want to basically state like where you're at and what your goal is, what your goal is. So it doesn't have to be a new goal, but for instance, when I was starting my business, I put out a Facebook post saying, hey, I'm leaving my dad's business. My dad's solving his business. I'm leaving. I'm starting my own videography company again. I'm looking for anybody that just wants, a video, not weddings, like corporate work or commercial work. You know what I mean? And I'm just sharing it, like literally just saying what I'm doing, and that's my goal. And that I'm excited about it, right? Like how I feel about it. And the reason why I did that is because I had no clients. I had no client base. It was back to zero again. And so you have to start with the lowest hanging fruit, and that's the people you know. So you're not going to get them to refer you stuff until you tell them what you're doing and what you want. And then they could start, what you're doing is you're starting to plant in people's head like how to think about you, and to start putting you in their mental Rolodex when they encounter a situation that you can be a solution to, right? Like if they run into somebody who's like, oh, I need a video, and it's like, oh, okay, let's go to, I know somebody who does it. Or I need a video. I know somebody who does it. I'll reach out to them. So that's what you want to start training people to do. And that starts with that first announcement. And the reason why that is super important is that you have to make that first declaration of your intent, because then it helps create the context and kicks off the story for all these other bullet points that you can share as you go along, right? Because now people understand what you're trying to do, and they're part of that journey, right? Another really important thing to do is to say why you're doing it. You definitely want to always share your why, because that's how people know whether they should trust you and invest their emotions into you, right? The why, it can be a lot of different reasons. It doesn't have to be some crazy like I'm here to save the world thing. Like it could just be like, I'm doing it because I've always wanted to have my own business. I'm doing it because I love filmmaking and I can't imagine, getting paid to do anything else. or I'm doing it because I see it as a way to get to this next step, which could be something else like filmmaking or something, or you're doing it because you love the industry that you're working in, you know, or you want to help the industry, whatever it is. You got to find your why. And then another thing you could talk about is how you hope to grow from it, which is just what you want to get out of it. And because then you're sharing your dreams, and you're helping other people dream along with you. You know what I mean? Like storytelling is really just, I guess good storytelling takes place when your audience can identify with your journey and go along the journey with you and project themselves into that journey as well. Like, you know, that's what we're doing very subconsciously when we're watching a movie or a TV show. We latch on to specific characters because we either identify with them, or we identify with their struggle, or, you know, there's just something in ourselves that we see in them, you know? And then once you've kind of kicked off and you've really started that story journey or journey story, then you can start celebrating your milestones along the way. Like, hey, I got my first client. Isn't that amazing? Like, this is who they am. Or I'm doing my first, you know, live stream job, or I'm doing my first like artsy fartsy commercial. Whatever it is, I've made my first, you know, $10,000 in a month, you know, whatever it is. You want to celebrate those milestones. Another thing is to highlight your struggles. Talk about what you've done, or what you've faced, and then how, you know, you found a way to deal with it, or found a solution, or how you've won. That's pretty helpful, because then when people see you going through adversity and getting better, they are proud and they're happy and for you, and they want to support you even more. I think asking for advice. Another reason why celebrating milestones, by the way, backing it up a little, is good for you is because if you're doing it not in a braggy way, like that's all you talk about, but if you just genuinely like sharing your success as you go, like people always want to support winners, you know, like we celebrate underdogs, but only the ones we think are going to be the winners. You know what I mean? Like we don't actually celebrate the actual like losers, like people that aren't gonna, you know, have a chance. Like people want to see you win. And so I think when they see you winning, when they see you achieving, then they want to support that even more. It's kind of like how like, I mean, you see it in play in so many different, it manifests in so many different ways. But like, for instance, even with like Kickstarter, psychologically and statistically, you know, if you can get a certain amount of money raised in the beginning, then you'll get more people donating to you because they think that you're going to win, right? Or if like it's towards the end of the campaign and they see like you're really close to the goal, then you're more likely to actually get the goal, because it'll be easier for people to decide to help you, you know. Okay, another way of marketing is asking for advice and getting input from people. That's just goes under networking and human engagement, but it is a form of marketing in my mind, because, you know, the type of advice you ask for and the input that you're asking for means that you're also sharing something about yourself. You're also sharing your story. You're also revealing who you are, right? And so when you have specific people you want to work with, that's a great way. Like for instance, if I want to do startup videos, right, then I'll reach out to somebody who runs a startup and say, hey, you know, I have this idea to do a business for startup companies. Can you just take a look and tell me what you think and your honest opinion, like from your perspective, like if you were looking for video, like what would you think about this proposal or deck or ad, right? Or you could ask for advice like, hey, you know, I'm looking for, you know, to do real estate videos, and you reach out to a realtor and you say, hey, like, how do I reach out? Like, where should I contact realtors? What's the best way to hire? Have you ever hired a video? Like, how much did you pay? You know what I mean? Like you're just asking for advice and intel to build your business, and you're not explicitly asking them for business. And the reason why you do that is because, first of all, you don't want to make it uncomfortable for somebody if like you friends with them or you're connected with them, and you don't want to put them in a situation where like they have to say no to you. Instead, you should put them in a situation where if they're looking for it, they have an opportunity to ask you for it, right? Because if you ask them for advice and they also happen to need the thing you're asking about, then they'll volunteer like, oh, actually I need this too, like can we talk about this, right? Like that happens a lot. So that's why it's much better way to get in the door with people, especially like strangers, let's say, who you don't really know actually, and you're really just you know, trying to connect with them. Then you can definitely reach out to them and you know, ask for advice. Is a great way to start a relationship. Another way to market yourself is to share your passions and inspirations, like articles, to books that you like, to videos you're watching, to articles about, especially in your own industry, is very helpful, like sharing, you know, video marketing advice, or, you know, if you, let's say you were working with lawyers, you're sharing like top 10 ways lawyers, you know, can take advantage of TikTok, you know, like things like that, like things that interest you, that inspire you, that you're passionate about, like those, share those things, because you know, at the very least you're sharing more about yourself and building more familiarity and trust, or and you know, it could even lead to actual, you know, work and connections and stuff, you know. And then like I talked about before is just commenting and engaging with people, which is just basically you know, doing some of these things. Like you could ask them for advice, you could just share something to piggyback off something they're talking about, or add more perspective to something they're talking about. um, the main thing is you know, actually commenting and engaging with people so that they know that you're a real human, you see them as a real human, you're talking to them as a real human, and then now you're building a digital relationship. There's so many people that I've talked to for years on Facebook without never meeting them, seeing them in person, knowing who they are, that ended up becoming clients or friends, you know, and that just all happened from digital engagement. Another way to market yourself is to create an event. So basically an event is just like a one-time you know, activity. So it could be something like a special discount. It could be like you know, the free case study you know, offer, that sort of thing, where they get a benefit for engaging in the moment. Like I get messages actually from one of my former makeup artists where she will send me, she'll say, hey, like if you buy like 2, you know, sessions ahead of time during this month, then you get it for, you know, $100 a day less or something like that. And for me, knowing that I'm going to keep working with her, and knowing that I would want to save that money later, that's actually a good deal. That's a good offer. You know what I mean? Um, if I was a company that needed some Instagram videos and somebody was offering it to me for free for a case study, that'd be an amazing deal, right? Because I need that. And if it works out for me, then I'll spend money on it. And you can come up with your own events, you know, you can come up with your own, you know, partnerships, or you could work with people, and you can, there's all sorts of things you could do. Another type of event is like creating a project or a product or something you need help on. So just like, for instance, when I go into a different industry, I let people know, and then I tell them I need help. I want to, you know, some referrals, that kind of stuff. Um, Highlighting others, that's something we talked about, you know, already, in terms of the different messaging you can do. But I just want to reiterate that, you know, you can start connecting the dots by highlighting all the people who've been part of your journey. And then you start kind of like creating this network effect. And these people become part of your tribe, you know. And then also you can spend time helping others and just offering advice, and, you know, even mentoring people, or just providing support in any way. Okay, so those are basically short-term marketing plans, things you could do in spurts, you know. For a long-term marketing plan, it's more of a knowing what your vision is, what you want in a like a 2 to 5 to 10 year period, right? And then like directing your actions towards that goal, right? Because there's a difference between putting out a Facebook post and saying, hey, I'm, you know, doing these videos, and if anybody wants it, let me know. There's a difference between that and, like, for instance, having a list of the top 10 startups you want to work with and like engaging with them specifically, right? Like you're purposely putting your marketing messages towards them. So, you know, I think for long-term marketing plans, you really want to have your own vision of your company, but also have a Dream 100 that you're referring to, that people that you want to connect with. You know, the Dream 100 is just a great way for you to understand what direction you're going with your messaging, because especially when you're going out connecting and engaging with people online, you get to choose who it is. So you might as well choose the people from your Dream 100, or going towards your Dream 100, like step by step, because that's what you want. I mean, that's what's going to bring you, like, I mean, it's called your Dream 100 because it brings you to your dreams. Like, it brings you these things that seem unattainable in the beginning, you know, like, for instance, I'll give you a very tangible journey of myself, of my Dream 100 is like working on my documentary about Oakland and the Warriors. When I first started out, I just wanted to highlight the Warrior fans, the community, the local community, and, you know, maybe get some free tickets to games. Was like, that would be cool. And that was in 2009. And then when Steph Curry became like a superstar basketball player, that was like a dream for me to meet him and connect with him, right? And then from 2015 to 2018, you know, I had, in that time period, I went to the NBA finals 3 times. I went to the NBA All-Star weekend. I interviewed tons of players. I met all of the players on the team, pretty much. I interviewed the owner, the president. I've been on a private jet with Steph Curry. It's like crazy stuff, right? That, like, if I had known that was going to happen, I would be very flabbergasted, and still am, but also just like very confused on, like, how do you make that happen? But because it was on my list, you know, when I got these opportunities to connect with people, I was able to filter very quickly in my head, like, is this person going to take me towards or away from that goal, right? So for instance, when one of my, you know, and I'm telling people, like, again, I'm doing this stuff, right? Like, all this stuff that I'm talking about, I'm doing this about the documentary while I'm doing it. I'm talking about the fact I want to do this documentary, why I'm doing it, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff is part of my marketing for myself. I'm not, you know, I use the word marketing because there's no other word for it, but really, like, you don't have to think of it as marketing. It's just really communicating your story. Because, you know, it's not like when I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is like my marketing. You know, it's just stuff that turned out really useful, and then I understand how it applies now in a marketing sense. And so, for instance, you know, a friend came to me and said, hey, there's this guy doing a free, like, giving food to the homeless, and, you know, they don't have anybody doing their video. Like, if you want to do it for free, like, you should think about it, because he's like really good friends with Steph Curry. And I'm like, okay, and they wouldn't have known to tell me that if I hadn't already conveyed my journey, right? Number one. And then number two, because Steph Curry is on my bucket list, or my Dream 100, let's say, it was very easy for me to look at that and say, you know what, regardless of the outcome, this is definitely worth giving a shot. Like, I don't do free work too much, you know, but I will do it in this case, right? And, like, go out and bring a camera and do the filming and do the editing and just really, you know, humble myself, or just not. I think sometimes there was a time period for me, and I think I see in a lot of people, they go through a time period where they realize they're worth something, and then like, they get undervalued a lot, and then you get a little bit you could easily get cynical, or you could easily become a little huffy puffy, like anytime somebody mentions free work, because it's like, I don't do free work, I'm so past that, I'm too good for that, you know. And it's like, actually nobody's too good for free work, depending on the value that you get out of doing that work, right? I've seen millionaires and billionaires do stuff for free because they're going to get connections or network. So anyway, so I agreed to do it. I connected with the guy really well. I ended up becoming his director of all his video stuff for his nonprofit. I didn't get paid for it at all. However, I got into a bunch of basketball games because of him. I got to meet a ton of players because of him. I went on, you know, I went for free to film, expenses paid to film at the NBA All-Star break and interview players, and ended up being on a private jet with Steph Curry because he wanted me to film his event that he had Steph be part of. But all of that happened literally from the seed of me just sharing my journey on social media and connecting with people and engaging with them. And this brings me back again to the point that when you have a Dream 100, it makes it a lot easier to decide who to connect and engage with, right? Because now you're going to the top, like you're leading yourself towards the top, and it feels like a dream, you know, when you actually get there. So the way that you do that is, once you've made your list, you just connect, you comment, add value, as I keep saying. You know, you could ask questions that allow them to demonstrate value and make them kind of show like what they know and feel good about themselves. You can be supportive, you can be funny, you know, you can show that you're in touch with their needs by sharing content that's relevant to them, which could be articles, quotes, links. You can even introduce them to other people that they should connect with. Those are all things you could do free of charge, easily online, that can start getting you connect closer and closer to your Dream 100. Any questions? Okay, so, and then you also want to be consistent. When you're engaging with your Dream 100, use that list to choose your engagement like 3 to 5 times a week. And do this over time with some connection before you make any ask, as I keep kind of hammering, because this is really important. Too many people just try to jump across the finish line when they don't even know somebody. It doesn't work that way. And especially the more successful they are, the more that they have stuff going on, the less that you're able to convince them to take an action from the get-go, when they can filter that against a ton of other opportunities, right? So you know, because when you're reaching out to somebody, you're never just judged on you know, who you are. It's against who other people are too, right, that are offering something similar. And if you are going to make an ask, make sure that there is an irresistible offer that just gives them so much value that really, like, they're stupid, or they just flat out don't need it maybe, but they're just dumb if they don't at least get that there's value, and then they're the wrong customer. Right? Or maybe they're too cheap or stingy or something, right? But especially if you're offering free stuff, like, it's pretty easy for people to say yes, you know. But you have to make it clear what the value is. If it's not free, especially, then you have to be really, really clear what the value is, what gives them value, like what they're going to get out of it. So, you know, just to summarize, when you're marketing, just be human, add value, don't take. And I think the main things you want to do in the next step of your journey when you're going through this process is connect and engage, start connecting, engaging with your Dream 100 list. And then figure out a short-term event that you can promote online is another thing. So whether that's, hey, I'm, you know, launching in this specific space, I'm looking for the first 3 customers of this type, and I'm going to give them this, I'm going to give them that, you know, that kind of thing. That's something I do often, just because for me, it builds like really great human connections. Even for Videography Academy, when I do these short-term events that I promote, whether it's even this $100 challenge, like, it's just, it adds value, and it builds real connections with people, like just how we're, you know, in a group together now, right? Because you're all people I never met before in my life. Right? But this event brought us together, and so as long as I'm concerned about making sure you get value, then I know that, you know, as you progress in your career, then there's more opportunities for us to work together, you know. and or just be friends and just have a connection and have a network. I mean, that's great, you know. So figure out what that short-term event could be that you want to promote online. I think for most of you though, it's going to be like, you know, work for building your portfolio or a case study, or building up your kind of network and kind of like authority in the space. Any questions? No, it's pretty clear. So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick because I drank like a giant glass of water and a coffee and a tea, and then I will be right back, and we'll go right into the project management. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I'll be right back.
So Neil, we've got to talk about your Zoom background.
Oh,
I know, I'm always looking at his background. I'm like, it's so distracting. I'm like, all the hamsters and
yeah, it's a shit post called Interstellar Hamster Wheel.
God. I'm waiting for one of the versions that the hamster doesn't get caught and he just runs off.
Nah, it just lives forever. I've got SpongeBob anime.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
I was saying, now we're talking.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I get diagnosed with something someday, because I'm always distracting myself with something stupid, but I still get stuff done.
I'm really entertained by it. I just actually want to see what this is about.
I'll just send you the actual video link in
Yeah,
chat.
that'd be amazing. Check this out.
That was really quick, Henry.
He's a man of efficiency.
Apparently, yeah.
Make it happen.
He's got that management down.
He prospected three new clients at the same time.
Multitask.
Send you the link, Luke.
At least Henry's not on his phone. He
Thanks,
didn't take the phone into the bathroom or something.
No. That's funny.
We're not members of Congress here.
Definitely not. It would be a funny Congress, though. I'll tell you that.
Oh, it's happened. It's happened.
I know somebody who was on a big Clubhouse platform event, and he went to take a leak and left his mic on accident.
Oh, that's classic.
And while he was pissing, one of the ladies was like, "Are you tinkling right now?" And he's like, "Oh shit, mute."
Oh, that's not even the worst. I saw on YouTube, it was like a news, I was watching like Comedy Central late night news parody stuff, and they were talking about apparently over in the UK, there was I don't know what they're called, like congressperson, whatever their equivalent is, who they were on doing a Zoom and didn't realize his video was on, and he was completely naked.
Oh yeah, there's been those. There was a reporter that got caught cheating on his wife because some girl like walked out of the bedroom behind him on a Zoom. There was
they were like, let's put into the record, like, make sure like some members are not properly dressed, and it's like, yeah, he wasn't dressed at all. He was fully naked on national TV through Zoom.
That's hilarious.
I've been in one where like too many guys got drunk, and one was there to take a shit on stream, so he brought his laptop into the bathroom with him. It's horrifying.
Oh snap, that's great. All right, so let's jump into project management. Honestly, this section needs its own course because project management is just a gigantic I'm thinking about in terms of project management in terms of the whole execution of the project, but I'm focused right now just more in terms of like kind of an overview, but I'm actually going to, because we have the extra week that we're going to do in the challenge, I'm going to use that time to break down that commercial basically from beginning to end and use that as a case study for everybody. So, there's basically two facets of project management, which is the creative work and then the producing logistics, right? So, because they're always affecting each other, and you have to constantly calculate both. And when it comes to the creative work, what you're calculating is like, how is this product going to look at the end? And how is that product going to affect the audience and move them towards the goal in mind, right? Now, logistics is basically, how do I make that happen? Or as things change, how do I change? If the logistics change, how do I adjust the creative to still get the end result that I want, right? When it comes to creative conceptualization, it always comes from defining your goal, aka what is the desired action from the viewer. So if the goal is, especially because now we're thinking specifically for our clients, right? So if the goal is like, let's say you are working with a fitness influencer and they're getting ready to sell like a protein powder, right? That's the desired action, is that their customer base goes to their website, adds a protein powder cart and then purchases it, right? Then what are you going to put in the story to make them go that direction? So for instance, Neil, what would you like if that's the client and the project goal is to sell protein powder? What information do you think you need to make sure is included in that concept to achieve that goal?
Well, I think you'd certainly need some focus on what the protein powder will do if used correctly, because I know some people who just have it straight up and then don't go to the gym. Yeah,
Oh, really?
There's some branding, marketing, content problem there.
Yeah. And Eric, what do you think would you want to put in, or what questions would you ask to get the right content in that type of concept?
Well, the first thing I would do is when I'm coming up with trying to come up with the concept, I would ask the owner or the company who makes the product, like, what makes this different? Who are you marketing it to, and why should they use your product over? I mean, there's, especially if you're using health protein shake, like there's so many out there. What makes yours different and better? Who are you trying to market, and what's the story of why people, what's your story? Why should people use yours?
Right. Okay, I like that. And Luke, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. What's their unique selling point? That would probably be my first question. Potentially, depending on who their target audience is, what value will someone get from their product? Like, what's the idea or the dream they're trying to sell people by buying that product? So do people want to just get jacked? Something like that.
Right. Great.
Also, just to add in, I would also ask them, like, what do they put in their products? Because I know a lot of people, especially nowadays, like, just putting lots of chemicals, and like, people don't want to just put random chemicals in their body. Like, why, what are they using that makes them better and like healthier and stuff? Because I know for me, like, I look at the back of a bottle, I'm like, I don't know what half this stuff is. Like, I don't want to just put random chemicals in my body.
Right. Exactly.
There's probably also something in exactly how they want to show that their product is being used, because there's got to be more than one crowd that uses it.
Right.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, let's see. We'll do this exercise together. So basically, if the features, and I'm making this all up right now. So we're talking about, oops. Okay. So let's say for the features, they're like, okay, it's it's powder form and liquid, right? The effects will be like build muscle mass in 48 hours. I'm just making this up, right? Or let's be more realistic. Let's say they'll see results in like 7 days. Okay. The unique selling point is that it is sold by a top influencer bodybuilder, and another unique selling point is that it's like a custom like recipe, right? And common objections would be like price, how long does it take, side effects, let's say. And then their audience profile is it's other bodybuilders who are serious about gains, say. And then their dream is to end up competing or just looking like Adonis. And then the ingredients, let's say, are like all organic, locally sourced. Right? And then mission statement would be something like their company goal is like, as a bodybuilder, I want to bring or give the best results with the cleanest ingredients, and no additives, that type of thing, let's say. Okay, so now we kind of got like a little Q&A, and that's we have enough here to basically figure out what's going to be in the commercial, right? So, creative. So I think it's pretty, go ahead.
Definitely start the campaign in January when there's a bunch of newbies trying to get into gyms.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, you would want to start in December, because that's when people are going to start getting ready.
One other question I would we would need in the answers is obviously we say who they're marketing to, but what's the age demographic?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would market just like in the comments for what Neil put, like how I would market this towards 35 and under versus 50 and over is completely different.
Okay, we'll just say it's 25 to 40, let's say. I mean, you would do a full actual customer avatar, like, I mean, this is like just really general stuff, right? Like, because like imagine like you just met somebody on a subway, or you were just like chatting with them somewhere, right? Like you're not going to be able to give them like a full form or something. You're going to have to get specific, more specific as you develop, but maybe on the spot you're going to have to come up with some ideas on what's going to be in their commercial just based off of your conversation with them, right? So we can definitely ask more questions, but let's say we're just going to stop here for now. And then so what's going to have to be in it? So if there's I think the main thing also we have to keep in mind is the end goal is for them to buy, go to their website and click on it, right? So you want to get people excited enough to purchase right then and there, right? So, if the goal purchase powder immediately from website, right? So then that probably means, like, I'm guessing like in the overall creative direction, it's going to have to be informational and exciting at the same time, right? So then the translation from the questions and answers would be like, okay, so you definitely want to show both forms, right? So you have to shoot both, which means some product type shots, right? So you're going to have to, like, doing a product shot and getting a product to pop and look good is different than shooting like just like a 3-point interview, right? You might need different equipment or a different setup, or you might need to be more specific on how you're going to achieve that. Anytime if I'm doing a commercial with a physical product, I have to think about, okay, what am I going to do to get that product to look good, build muscle mass in 70 days. That could be translated either on text or voiceover, right? But you also need shots of mass. So, you know, you could even do before or after, right? Like you could have somebody set, like, by the way, like these types of products usually have kind of more, you know, infomercially or boring, you know, type creative, right? It's not necessarily like a Coca-Cola commercial or a Nike commercial or something. You can make it look like that too if you want. But again, if the goal is to get them to purchase immediately, then they probably have to have some answers, you know, it's not just like a fashion lifestyle thing. We're going to look cool. Like these people, if they're serious about bodybuilding and gains, then they actually have specific questions that need to be answered, right? So then, you know, let's say with the next part with the top influencer, then you want to get shots and sound bites from influencer, right? And then they also talk about custom recipes. So you could say shots of like testing out recipes or working on products, right? Because you want to visually connect that. The price could just be price at end, you know, disclaimers, you know, visual, audio. Now, if the audience, the bodybuilders are 25 to 40, you're going to either choose one, you know, hero actor, you know, or like a group, like a spread, right? So maybe like you could do 3 and you could do like 125, 130 something, and then another 40, right? Because you want to show your audience, your target audience, themselves, right? So it's a good point that Eric is bringing up. That's actually a very important thing is to know the age group always. Gender and age group and like job type or industry type is, or I guess interest type is really the main things that you need to figure out when you're casting, right? And then you know, and then if their goal, if their dream, the customer's dream is to look like a Greek god, then you should show the ultimate transformation, right? Like the fully realized end result. Now, in terms of the organic, locally sourced, like you could show ingredients or source, or you can just state it, right? Visual, audio, which is text on screen, right? And then this kind of mission statement, I feel like needs to be incorporated from the influencer in their interview, right? Interview or voiceover from founder, right? Or representative. It could be the actors too, because they could be saying, oh, this, like if it was cheesy, you could be like, oh, look at this protein powder. It's so amazing. It glows in the dark, but it's actually, you know, totally organic and safe for you. You know, which I would be very scared of. But the point is, like, now we have an idea of the stuff that we need, right, for the creative. And then as we move to the logistics, what does that say, right? We're going to have some sort of motion graphics for the text, right? We're going to have a, you know, a setup for doing an interview with the founder. We're going to have to get B-roll footage and make it look cool. So we might need lighting or a gimbal or a slider or something like that, right? We're also going to have to do casting to get the right talent in there. We're going to probably have to do, you know, I mean, definitely you're going to have to do editing, and then you're probably going to have to do some sort of, you know, finishers like color correction and all that stuff. And then you probably even have to figure out like the legal stuff, right? Because it's like a food thing. So obviously there could be more logistics. I'm just going off the cuff here, but the point is, like, this is how you're translating a goal into a creative, into logistics. And then as you work on the project, logistics could change, which could change the creative. So like, let's say you have 3 bodybuilder, you want to do 3 bodybuilders, but then you find out the budget only allows for 1. Then you can say, well, I'll go for the middle guy because he's like the one that's going to represent as much as the most of them, right? Or let's say, you know, for some reason the influencer doesn't want to be the face of it or have to speak or isn't available for an interview, then you might say, okay, well, I'll shift over into change the creative into like a voiceover or giving one of the actors the opportunity to say these lines, right? So as you're developing the project, it's going to affect, you know, or you find out that, you know, it's not organic and it's not locally sourced, and then you have to change that creative and find a different unique. So it's like, oh, actually glow in the dark ingredients aren't good for your body. And then it's like, you know, then you might have to change the creative. Does this all make sense to you?
Yeah, it's like just make sure you know what it is, who wants it, and then sell. Like you can't just go out and say, one quick trick to losing 7 kilograms in a day, and then show a quadriplegic. You know?
Right. Exactly. Unless you're somehow making a really funny joke. That would be a tough one in that case, though. So, although I did have an idea in my head when I was just talking about this case study, like what in terms of casting, like what if you got like a 5-year-old and then like they started taking the protein powder and then they just showed up with like Popeye arms and they're like out lifting everybody in the gym, you know, and you'd be like, so powerful that even a 5-year-old is going to have gains. And then it's like, but you know, that you're leaning into that on purpose, right? But okay, so next, when it comes to producing the actual work, you know, the goal again determines what you need to shoot, and what you need to shoot determines the resources and internal budget, right? And the resources and internal budget really determines the schedule, right? You could go vice versa where you have this deadline and, you know, that can help you also figure out, because let's say it's a rush, then you're like, oh, well, I'm going to actually need more resources and more budget to make this schedule. But in general, you're going to start off this way where you're going to figure out what it's going to take. You know, just like in our example, like we just from that example, I can tell you like already, like either you're going to have to do a day where you're doing interviews and B-roll on the same day, or maybe I might prefer a 2-day shoot if there's a budget for it, right? And also like there's going to be a need for some attention to the equipment because you know, maybe I want to make sure that I have a gimbal, you know, some smooth shots, or I want to make sure I could shoot slow motion, or I want to make sure that I could shoot the product really well. And then that means I'll have to do some figuring out in terms of what is the kit that I'm going to need to get the job done, right? So yeah, again, I think we'll definitely have to go create some other workshop or for project, you know, creation, development, management. Now, when it comes to breaking down a script, you know, you just want to organize into the small pieces, which, you know, I wonder, is there a script breakdown? Let me see. Let me see. Oh, there's no script breakdown here, but have you guys done like script breakdowns or anything like that?
Yeah, a couple times.
Let me see. I'll just briefly show you just to review for the people that might watch the
Yeah, I've done them a handful of times as well.
So a script breakdown is a very, very useful way to, you know, just get an idea of what needs to be done, especially when you have a multi-page script where, you know, you're going beyond like, because a lot of times when we're doing videography, like you can just kind of outline something and then you can say, well, you know, I'm going to go show up, I'm going to do an interview and B-roll, right? So you just need to have the interview questions prepared. And you're really just going to get the B-roll like based on what you can get at the moment, or if you have a chance to direct them a little, you could make a list of like specific shots you want, right? But it's really easy to just go with the flow. a lot of times, right? But when you're, let's say, doing a commercial where it's like scripted and there's multiple scenes and stuff like that, and a lot more moving parts, and you know, especially you know, story based, you know, then you're treating it like it's filmmaking. So then you need to really start breaking it down more specifically. So the main things is that you're just going to create the, I'll upload this into the challenge, but you're just breaking down each page of this or each scene from the script into these different categories so that you can start getting a spread of what you want. Like, how many people are in it? Is there any stunts? Do you need any extras? Are there vehicles, animals, props? Are there special effects involved? You know, what does their wardrobe look like for each person? What does their makeup and hair look like? You know, is there special effects? I mean, sound effects and music, any special equipment, like a crane, drone, that type of stuff, and any other notes you want for that scene. And so I'll break this down. This sheet is very simple, but very, very effective in helping you get a big picture of what is needed. So especially if somebody else has written the script and they're sending it to me and I need to make a budget, I'm going to do a breakdown immediately because I need to know on paper, what do I need to get the job done? So for instance, on this nail pop thing, there was a lot of wardrobe, like the concept based on it, like each scene, like each girl had like 3 or 4 outfits, you know what I mean? And so I had to go out and buy all the potential wardrobe, and because it's a nail product, the outfits were all based on color, like specific colors for specific nails, right? And so, and then all the girls had different sizes, so I had to go shopping for the clothes, and I ended up spending $1,000 on clothes just to have enough options for everybody, because we didn't have the time to have a stylist go out and pick specific outfits and get it approved and all that stuff. And even then, you're always buying extra options and stuff. But you know, and I'm a guy and I suck at buying clothes, so I just like grabbed so much of everything because I was like, I don't know what's going to be used. And so that was a much bigger cost normally, for because I've done tons of commercials where you could even just not even buy anything almost, and they could just, you know, you just see what the actors have. And we did ask the actors what they had ahead of time, but they didn't have most of the stuff that the director wanted, you know what I mean? So, you know, you're going to do the project breakdown. In general, the main things are budget, the time that you have, the location, like just in terms of logistics for producing like video work, videography especially, the equipment you might need, any people involved, and then always just keeping in mind, what does the final product look like? And just kind of using common sense to make adjustments to your needs based on that. Now I put a, oh, I did put a breakdown worksheet. What the heck? Where is this thing? Is it in this? Oh, you know what? Okay, so I did, see, I thought I did it. So I was like, I'm tripping. So I have a zip file that has like the project case study for this, which is basically EvaBot. This was a commercial that was $20,000 budget and it cost about $7,000 to make. And then that's like 13K profit. And I shot for a half day. So this is a pretty cool project. You guys can definitely download the case study and check it out. That would be basically your action items for this section. I don't know if these action items apply to you right now for this challenge, but if you guys have a project that you're getting to that you need help with, you could let me know. Let's just keep rolling, because I want to finish these next 2 chapters. Next is client management. Basically, there's 4 stages of client management. Okay, you're managing them during pre-production. Before you've been hired, you're not managing anything. You're just convincing them to hire you. But now that once you sign a contract and they become your actual client, now you got to manage them. You got to manage that relationship. That is done in the pre-production phase. That is done while you're shooting. That is done after you're done shooting, especially is where the bulk of it comes. And then even after the project is done, you're going to have to make sure that you're keeping a relationship, and they might reach out and ask for you for more things randomly, you know. I did a commercial in the I did a commercial that aired right before the shutdown, and then when the shutdown happened, I mean, it was messed up because we just delivered it and then it just aired for like a week or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden like the shit hit the fan, and like they reached out after the project's done, like we're fully delivered, but they reached out and then they were like, hey, is there a way for her to because the whole commercial, like the idea was that she's leaving for work. And they're like, well, now that nobody can leave for work, like, is there a way to do this commercial where she's at home? And I was like, well, we would like literally have to reshoot it. Like, and they're like, how much would that cost? And I'm like, pretty much the same amount of money as it cost initially, because we literally can't use that entire like scene, you know? So explaining that to them in a way that they're satisfied, that they're not upset unreasonably, is part of the management of the client, right? It's how you communicate. Now, when it comes to managing a client, successful client management is basically predicated on clear agreements. Number one, it starts with that. If you don't have clear agreements, if you haven't, if you aren't both very sure of what is happening and what needs to happen, it could lead to problems, and those problems can end up really hurting you or your relationship, your reputation, right? So price is the first thing, right? The total cost. Any additional costs, if you're allowed to bill at the end, or if you have to eat all of it, unexpected costs that you have to communicate, along the way if anything changes. Like I did a commercial that was supposed to be $500,000, and then the agency came up with these ideas, and I was like, well, this is going to cost like another $300,000, and they were like really upset, but they ended up deciding amongst themselves that they wanted it, right? And so they ended up paying the extra cost because it was their idea anyways. So it was just like, the stuff that they were throwing at me, I just had to hit a break and say, look, I can't do this because there's not enough money to do it. So if you want it, you're gonna have to pay more. If you don't want to pay more, we'll change the idea to something else. And so that's communication, also, especially I think for internally, maybe, because you don't always have to say how many days or how many hours you're working or whatever like that. But the effort part is actually part of the, agreement for you. Even if maybe you're determining some of it internally and then you're just translating that into cost, total cost. But definitely how many days shooting is always going to be negotiated, right? For bigger, smaller jobs. Like when I was young, I definitely did some jobs where it was more like, oh, let's just get it done. And then like, let's say interviews dropped out, or some conditions, either their fault or not their fault, caused things to have to go longer with reshoots or whatever. Then that has to be communicated and agreed to ahead of time so that I could charge more if that's the case. Or I decide to just do it, right? Because there's definitely been some jobs where like I had to do additional production work that I was just like, I don't care. It doesn't take me that much more. And I really want to get this project done really well. And so I just do it, Actually, I just recently won an advertising award for a commercial that was done for very little money and ended up being a lot of extra days of work, but it was something we wanted to do for our portfolio, and it turned out really good. Now, the product final length is also a very important part of an agreement, because you just have to agree on what it's going to look like. If it's going to be a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, you have to agree on it, because your final cost is all factored into what it takes to get the product done. And having a finished product means knowing how long it's going to be. If there's any additional costs, then you can upsell them. Or if they're clients, I mean, you could have additional costs if you upsell them. So for instance, let's say you agree to like a commercial And then you're also like, well, if you also want like the social media package, which could be like a half dozen, 10-second clips, then it only costs X more. So I actually am doing this right now with a client that through an agency that I work with, where they want to spend $25,000 on a project, and they want to do all the resizing for like Pinterest, Instagram, like vertical square, all this shit. And I did a quote. I say, well, it'll cost another $2,500 to do it, and then if they make requests that that you didn't foresee, then you have to figure out if it costs more, and if it does, tell them. These are the most important things to get out of the way, to agree on, because these are the things that can cause Armageddon if they're not agreed upon, right? It could destroy you or their project or your relationship or everything. You just have to make sure it's super clear. Any questions? Okay. Now, if they have additional requests, which happens all the time, before you react, you want to quantify their request. You want to really think about it. So for instance, with this nail pop company, God, I hate dealing with Korean companies, by the way. But we initially agreed upon, in my proposal to them, it was literally just one commercial that got cut into 2 different versions, but it's just one shoot, right? And it would be 3 locations and 2 actors. So this is the proposal that was finally given after multiple rounds, that they approved, that we signed a contract on. And then after the contract was signed, they sent me these scripts for 2 totally different commercials that had nothing to do with what we agreed upon. And I was like, what the heck is this? First of all, like, do I need to punch you in the face? Like, like this, but I didn't react because again, first you want to quantify the request, because the thing that was interesting about this is that both of their concepts were outdoor concepts. And so then I crunched the numbers and I was like, oh, I'll actually make, even though it's 2 totally separate commercials, instead of 1, I will make more money, because now I don't have to rent lights. I don't have to rent a space. There's a lot of costs I get to cut because it's outdoors. So when they said, if that's possible, I looked at how much more time it would take, how many more resources, and I found out that it would actually help me. So I said, you know what? I could do that. Right? So instead of just flipping out and being like, oh, how dare you change the contract and change the, blah, blah, like, I just quantified it, because you got to know. Now, if they had given me 2 crazy ideas that cost a lot more, then obviously it'd be a different conversation. This project ended up somewhat in the middle, because I decided to do 1 indoors and 1 outdoor concepts that I wanted to do. So it did eat into my profits, and then I ended up spending even more because there was extra cost, but that's a story for another day. But most likely when people ask you for additional things, it's just going to cost more. Very rarely does a client give you a curveball that ends up saving you money, right? So that's really exception to the rule. So when you get a request that costs more, you've quantified it and it costs more, then you need to inform them and offer options. You could give them pricing options, you could give them scope change options, you could counter, but you just have to communicate. You could say, look, these 2 ideas that you gave me that were different, it's going to cost another, $10,000, right? Or if you want to, take out one of the actors or take out a scene, then it might only cost you $5,000 more, right? Whatever it is, you have to give them options so you make a decision. So one thing that I think a lot of newer producers get kind of stressed out about or don't understand is that once you've signed a contract and you've taken, and even before, but especially once you've signed a contract and you've taken a non-refundable deposit, guess what? You get to negotiate on a lot of stuff. Because when you're just going for the proposal, they have all the power, because they're just deciding yes or no. And all you can do is make sure that whatever you offer or agree to is fair to you and something that you can live with, right? Or that you want to do. But But essentially, if they say no to even if you make a fair deal, then you don't have a job, right? But once you got some money in your pocket and it's the deposit and it's non-refundable, then when they start throwing you curveballs, then you get to say yes or no, right? But in doing that in good faith means that you're negotiating back and forth and giving options. So always it's a communication process that just goes back and forth. And I think a lot of people, they get emotional about it and they get upset and they take it personally. And it's really not that. I mean, it's just the way it goes. I mean, I've gone back and forth on $100,000 projects and, you know, like $1 million project, right? Like that's the name of the game. That's the way it goes. It's part of client management. Now, the key here is if they give you additional requests, you do not do it until there is a clear understanding that you have verbally agreed, or not just verbally, but it's in writing somewhere, or legally, like as a contract addendum or a new contract or whatever it is. The point is you have to watch your ass by being able to point to somewhere where it says the agreement. Just as an example, with this new project that I'm dealing with right now, that I might we don't know if it's going to happen, but we're going back and forth. The initial project manager had said that I would get 25,000. It would be from the agency. The deal was that my company gets 25,000. I don't have to give them a cut because they already have their own PO with them. And then the additional resizes would be another 2,500. Now that guy handed off the project and apparently he made some mistakes. And what happened was the client said they only have 24,000, or that's what's left on the budget, and they're not going to spend a penny more. And then they threw all these additional requests where these guys are they deserve a little kick in the butt because they're being super greedy, these clients. Like they went from two spots. Well, it's one commercial, but they just change out the logos at the end, right? But it's 2 spots with 2 sets of deliverables, like which are like almost 10 deliverables each. So it's like 20 deliverables, right? To saying, oh, and by the way, we want 4 holidays. So there'll be 4 different voiceovers and graphics, which actually makes it 80 deliverables. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing 80 fucking deliverables for the same price, and they're not going to pay the extra for the resizing. So we had to push back. And I just told the agency to tell them, like, look, they can't have it. They're just trying. They keep changing the rules, and they're just trying to take everything. And so now we're still going back and forth. But it's, guess what? Before I do a single shot, I'm going to have it in writing somewhere that this is what the deliverable is based on the changes. Especially as you work with bigger clients and you work more in the commercial world, they're more savvy and they're more able to try and figure out how to squeeze you. So you need to be super, super careful. Also, as part of the agreement is clear milestones. So basically, your pre-production, production, and post-production dates. Those are basically, I just outlined the main, milestones within each phase. Right? Like you want to have a range of what day you're shooting. These don't have to be in the contract. It's just going to happen back and forth as you're managing your project and communicating with your client. But, when you're kicking off a project, you're going to have to tell them when you're expecting to do this stuff, right? Now, you want to communicate a lot. My philosophy is communicate early and often. That's been a really good philosophy for me. You want to communicate a lot. It just builds a better rapport. It allows you to head off problems at the pass. It allows you to have a more amiable solution to things. What you don't want is because I used to do this thing where I would have all this pressure to deliver the project. I would kind of suffer in silence, you know what I mean? Almost like I was British. And then just, either break at the end where I'm just like so angry at myself or the client or both, or or the project would be in trouble, or if I have to ask for more money or something, it's like way too late to ask for it, and it just looks like I'm just like pumping them for more money or something like that, because a lot of times clients don't know what's going on in your process. So I learned to communicate a lot. So I do regular communication before a milestone and at the milestone. So, you know, if I'm on schedule, I'll tell them, hey, I'm on schedule for this thing. Or if I need more time, I'm like, hey, I need more time. And then when we're there, I'm sharing the work with them at the milestone. I'm saying, hey, here's the thing that we agreed upon. Check it out, blah, blah. What do you think? You know, before you move on to the next step. What I learned is that, especially when it comes to bad news, never, ever, 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 ever wait till the deadline, till that milestone. So if you were supposed to turn in a rough cut on Sunday, and you know, it's Saturday, and you realize that there's no way that you can get it done on Sunday, you don't wait till Sunday to tell them. You tell them on Saturday. You say, hey, I know this thing is due tomorrow, but it's taking me a little bit longer for XYZ reasons. I'm going to give it to you on Wednesday, right? What I learned is that if you tell clients about problems before the deadline, they will almost always be totally cool with it, and it won't even be an issue, and it won't hurt your reputation. When you communicate a problem, especially being late on something, let's say, on the deadline, then your reputation takes a ding. They trust you less. They might have a hissy fit. It might be a problem. Or especially if they have a reason why they really need it, or there's a curveball, you have not been giving yourself enough time to deal with it, right? So this is why communicating early and often is really important. You know what I mean? Because like I've been in situations, for instance, where let's say I have a deadline coming up, and then I think I might need more time. And then they're like, well, as an example, like it might be a situation where let's say the deadline is on a Friday, and then they're like, hey, nobody works on the weekend, so we're not going to be able to get a response if you don't submit it on Friday, right? And then I know, oh shit, okay, what do I need to change about my process, or do I need to hire somebody else, or what do I need to do to make sure I hit that deadline, because they've communicated to me that it's non-negotiable, right? But I wouldn't know that if I didn't talk to them ahead of time before that moment. If I told them on the moment and they told me that news, that would be really bad news, and then I would just screw myself, right? So again, communicating early is a way of protecting your reputation and protecting the project. And the benefits of communicating a lot is that you have more of a relationship, because you're going back and forth, you're building a rapport. And then also, as you communicate more, you're getting to know them, and you're actually having an opportunity to upsell yourself, right? So they could get to know your work ethic. They can see that you're working hard. There were many times where I would get a comment from people like, wow, I saw that your email came in at like 2 a.m. I can't believe you were working like at 2 a.m. And it's like, yeah, motherfucker, I work hard for you. I was working at 2 a.m. You were asleep at 10 o'clock. I'm still working. And then like, you know, and then now they trust you more, or they're impressed, or whatever it is. But the point is that you're building rapport when you're communicating a lot. You know, because I'll send in messages like, even like, hey, it's looking good. Like, you know, like 3 days before the deadline, let's say. And I'm just like, hey, it's looking good. Like, you guys are going to love it. And it's just like, that's it. Or for instance, with the commercial I did, I was sending photos from behind the scenes photos to the client while I was doing it, and they were loving it, you know, getting them excited. Also, another thing you could do when you're communicating is you can keep bringing up other things that you could follow up on later and pitch them, right? So for instance, let's say they hired me to do a commercial, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we got so much footage, like we could do like 10 different like social media clips out of this, right? Like I'm not selling them, but I'm just letting them know. And then a lot of times when they're happy with your work, then they're like, oh wow, yeah, it's great working with them. And you know what, I do want to take advantage of these extra clips. So how much would it cost to like have like a little social media package, right? Like that's all stuff that you can benefits you get. You have more opportunities to sell when you're communicating more. So that's really the lesson there. Any questions? Okay, cool. Now I want to talk about the soft pitch. The soft pitch is something that is very, very valuable to build your relationship and build your revenue opportunities. And it's very different from a sales pitch, because the sales pitch usually ends with a call to action, is really the main difference. The sales pitch is like, hey, here's an idea. Do you want to do it? Right? You know, and basically a soft pitch is basically planting, it's like inception, you know, it's like planting an idea, right? And you're giving them the reasons why this idea is cool, or you're making this idea cool for them. And then later you could follow up if you've built a better relationship and they're more interested, because statistically speaking, it is true that it is easier to get a customer to become a repeat customer, right? And it's easier to upsell a customer that exists. So if I'm going to give them a soft pitch, I'm going to make sure that the idea I'm giving them is explained clearly by how it's going to help them, what the goal might be for it, if it's solving a problem for them, a pain, why it might be interesting to them, tie it into something they agree with or that they're passionate with, right? Again, elaborate on a goal or pain they're interested in solving. It might be something unique that's cool about it, that's different, and anything that will give them an edge against their competitors, you know what I mean? And that's really the main aspects of getting people excited about an idea, and that idea might translate into you know, again, more products cut out of, you know, the main deliverable, or maybe like the next phase of it, like another commercial, or it could be a different service, like, hey, you need a landing page along with this, right? Like there's a lot of things you can pitch. I wouldn't worry about this too much at this moment, just because you guys are more going to be focused on just getting your initial jobs with people and stuff. But as you're learning client management, then you're going to learn how to start throwing in other ideas, you know? Another way to use communication to build your own value is like, show them you're working on it, which means like share your process as you're doing it. Like, for instance, I've even sent clients, like if I'm working on let's say a proposal, I might send a selfie photo with like me and like my crew on a whiteboard or something like that, you know, and it's like, hey, we're working on your proposal, like, and then, or behind the scenes photos, or, you know, I've sent like screenshots of like my post-production, like what a timeline might look like if I have like crazy layers and stuff like that. And I'm like, look how crazy this project is, you know? Just basically show them you're working on it, let them know. So that way, because a lot of times with the production process is very mysterious for people. They don't know what it takes. And so therefore, the more that you can share and educate them along the way, the more that you can kind of get them excited about you and understand what your value is. Another thing you could do is ask for their input. I do this strategically though. You definitely don't want them getting in the way of you, but like at key moments, you could ask for their input, like red or blue. Do you like this or that? You know, things that are easy for you to implement that don't really cost you more. And then another way, as you're doing client management, is to you know, add value in other areas, which is you know, sharing articles, things like that. Basically, those are the main things. Okay, when it comes to testimonials and referrals, like this is like towards the end of the project or after the project, and you want to get them to share their experience and all that stuff. You know, the theory of influence is basically reciprocity is number one. Like if you do something for somebody, they're more likely to do something back for you. That's why a lot of companies give free samples and stuff, or demos or trials, things like that. If you are if you can get them to commit to something, and it builds, and you're kind of consistently communicating with them and interacting with them, you could really get kind of more benefits from them. So for instance, if you're doing a free video for somebody and you're like, hey, if this goes well, I would like to, you know, talk about doing like a project with a budget behind it, right? And they say, yeah, that sounds great. If it goes well, I would love to pay you for the next one, right? Then they're more likely to do it. But like, let's say you don't say that and you just do the free video for them. And you're like, hey, let's do another video. And they're like, okay, cool. It's going to be great to have another free video. You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, that's not where I was headed. And they're like, and then think about it. I don't know. So you're really training them like how to think about it, right? By communicating early. Social proof is a great way to influence people as well, which is just be validated by the crowd by showing the people you know, that you work with, that's why the portfolios work, past clients, you know, influencers you're aligned with, that you have a relationship with, those things. If you are an authority on something, people tend to obey, meaning that they will follow along with your you know, instructions or directions if they trust you, that they believe that you are the authority, right? So for instance, you know, if I were to hire a really good web developer, right, for a project, I'm going to ask them what the process is, and I'm going to let them lead that, right? I'm not going to tell them how to build a website because they're the authority on it. Same thing, like if you demonstrate that you understand how production works, and then I'll give you a good example. So with this client, they had this flower company. The concept was that it's like a sachet like appears, and then like there's words written on it. And I was like, it's gonna cost so much more to edit like different sachets. And one person had the idea where they're like, oh, what if we do a blank one and you could replace the words later? I'm like, that would cost way more like to do VFX, right? Because I'm the authority on it. I'm telling them. So no, we can't do that. And then another one of them had an idea, and we're on the phone, you know. Another one had the idea where they're like, oh, well, what if we just have a sachet with like, it's blank or it's generic, and then you kind of, you don't see it. It's hard to see it, right? And you could just put the text on screen. And I just told them straight up, I'm like, you know, in my experience, like I could tell you right now, like it's going to be really hard to shoot it in a way that looks natural without seeing the front of the sachet, because it's so big and it's across your whole body. Like the actor would have to stand in like kind of an awkward way, or you'd lose shots. Like you couldn't get like a full shot. Like it would just not work very well for you. And I was just honest with them, right? But because I'm the authority on it, they accepted it. They're like, okay, let's go to the next idea then. You see what I'm saying? So this only happens though when you actually know what you're talking about, when you demonstrate that by asking the right questions, or having examples, you know, or you're giving feedback that is based on your experience, you know. Obviously, you can influence people if they like you. It's probably the easiest way of influencing people in general, right? That's why celebrities, athletes get big money to endorse something, because it's literally just, oh, I like that person, so I probably will like this product. And as much as we try, even if we're conscious about it and try not to, it's really hard not to fall for that, because you end up trusting, they're basically persuading you based on your trust in the person, right? By the fact you like them. So for instance, if you know, Chris Hemsworth has his workout app, right? And I'm like, well, this guy's pretty ripped and he's been in pretty good shape. And I've seen like his social media where he does his crazy workouts and stuff. Like his app might be okay to use. Like there might be some stuff in there that's useful, right? And then you check it out and find out if it's good or not. But you know, or you know, if you know, I see a blog article like top 10 business books from Bill Gates, that Bill Gates' favorite business books. Like, well, I know Bill Gates is super successful and I like, you know, what he's doing with what he did with his business. So I think these books are probably going to be worth reading, right? Like otherwise, you know, why would he like it, you know? Another thing that influences people is scarcity. So if you're saying, for instance, if you're offering a free video or a free product, then you could say, look, I'm only doing this for like 3 people. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh shit, I want to be one of those 3 people. You know what I mean? I think it works. It also works in other ways, having scarcity, because it allows you to reposition your message or develop your product even more. Like for instance, even for me, like with Videography Academy, I tend to release my stuff in batches. So I'll just say, okay, look, I'll just take like up to 100 people for this challenge, right? Because I want to make sure it goes well and that I'm not like screwing myself by trying to roll this out to like thousands of people at one time and then like crashing and burning, right? Like it's actually works out for everyone if there's a little bit of scarcity to it in that situation. Same thing, like if you're doing free videos, like you know, you don't want to just tell everybody, oh, I'm doing free videos forever, and then like somebody takes like 3 months to decide, and like you've already moved on into like the paid phase, and then they reach out to you and they're like, oh, but you said you would give me a free video. And it's like, oh, I should have told you I'm only doing it for 3 people, and you know that was 3 people ago, so you know now you got to pay me, that kind of thing. So scarcity could be useful for more than one reason. I think it's not just like a sales technique or something like that, but it does influence people because you know we always want something we can't have in a way, or we always, I guess a better way to say it is we have more incentive to buy if we think that the thing that we want is limited, right? Like if I wanted a pair of like custom Kanye West Jordans and I knew there was only like 10 made and I had an opportunity to buy one now and the means to buy it, I'd probably buy it at that moment instead of waiting longer, right? Because I might not get it later. I don't really care about Jordans, but you know, just I try to diversify my examples for different people. All right, now getting a testimonial is very, very important. How do you get it? Well, you know, first of all, you got to make sure that you did the job well and they're happy with it, right? And that you've communicated ahead of time that if you know it goes well and they're happy with it, that they'll give you a testimonial, right? The benefit is that people who advocate for you, they stay longer and they pay you more. They're more loyal, right? Because they've verbalized their happiness in you, right? And they've also, when somebody agrees to do a testimonial, that means they like you enough to invest in your success by giving you more of their time, right? Or if you've made an agreement ahead of time, then that's them delivering on their what they said they would, right? But either way, they're not going to do it unless they're happy, right? The basic rules for that is you want to ask at the right time, which is you know, in the beginning, before you start the project, and then at the moment of successful deliveries, right? Let me see. Oops. Didn't mean for that to be bold. So the beginning is like making that agreement ahead of time. Like, hey, if you're happy with this, is it okay to get a testimonial from you, right? The second time to do it is right when they're happy with it. If they've complimented you, like, oh, this is so great. This is exactly what I wanted. Cool. Can I get a testimonial from you saying that? Because I feel like that's going to help me a lot, right? Like do it when they're the most happy, because the more that they get busy and distracted by other things, the less likely they're going to follow up with you, right? Now, the quickest way to do it is you could just ask for an email via email. Like this is like if they don't like, if you're not comfortable asking them for a video testimonial, or they don't want to do it, or they just seem really hard to get a hold of, then you just ask them via email, how do they feel about working with you? Just honestly. And then if they give you a good answer, then you say, hey, could I just use this as a testimonial? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then you could just also follow up and say, hey, can you send me a photo so I can attach it to the testimonial at the least? And you can find one on Google if possibly, or you don't have to use a photo, but it helps. You know, basically a video is the best testimonial, and then a written testimonial with a photo next to it is the best way, the second best. Okay. If you can't get the photo, then the third is just get the quote. Now, to format the testimonial, these are the questions you can ask them. Basically, just to summarize it for you, you want them to talk about your service, the results, and their impressions, and why would they recommend somebody. Those are the main things, but you can get really specific on them based on what happened in your project. Now, getting referrals is different from getting testimonials, right? A referral means that they're going to share their relationships with you and help you build new relationships, right? And so a referral is actually, in a lot of cases, can be even harder than getting a testimonial, because what they're doing now is they're going to the next level, which is they're not just doing a testimony for themselves, but they're actually putting themselves on the line by referring you to somebody else that they're going to bat for you, and they're putting their own reputation on the line, right? So you don't start off asking for a referral, first of all. Like, also what I learned from, the hard way is, even if somebody agrees to give you a referral, like in the beginning of a relationship, like you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this free video for you, I just need like 2 or 3 referrals after, that one has a much lower success rate of them following up, even if they're happy, because the thing is, it takes time out of their day, you know what I mean? And it requires a different type of action and thought process that's more complex than just a testimonial. So I tend not to ask for a referral, but I will expect it at the end of the project if the relationship is good. So obviously you want to offer value first. When you're doing the project, when you're done with the project, you want to engage with them, keep engaging with them, because what could happen is if you just stop talking, then you just drop out of their mindset, and then you're like back to like being kind of like a ambiguous, character in their head, right? But the more that you keep engaging with them, you're actually human, right? And you're supporting them and offering education, inspiration, all that stuff, then you're getting an opportunity for them to get to know you better. And then you could reach out to them and ask for a referral. And the more specific it is, the better, you know what I mean? So you could either have an event where you're like, hey, I got this special deal going on. I'm doing, half off for explainer videos for startup companies. Do you have any startup companies you could refer me? Right? And then they'll refer you to some. Or do you know anybody, if you're happy with the work I did for you, if you know anybody else who needs it, please send me an introduction. That would be great. And they might do it immediately, they might not. And then also you can ask them specifically for advice and introductions. You could say, hey, I noticed you're friends with, this person, and I really want to connect with them for this reason. Is it possible for you to intro me? Right? Like that happens all the time in business. And there's 2 types of referrals or referrers from direct clients, right? Is, again, you work with them, you gave them value, the job is done, you ask them if there's anybody else that could benefit, you could offer some sort of perk, even you could give them a commission, all that stuff, right, to incentivize them. And they're really somebody that they're referring you because you help them, right? A partner referrer is somebody that, they perceive value in you, and they basically are supporting you because it helps them as well somehow, right? Either it helps their reputation, their brand, or it helps them look better because their clients get more services, increases their network, their authority, that type of stuff. But there's a mutual benefit that comes with a partner, right? And you can offer them all sorts of perks and things like that. The main thing is that when you have a partner, you want to share your successes, you want to share the things you're working on and share your goals, so they know what you're doing and know how to think about it and could stay aligned with you, right? And then you can offer them, again, discounts on their work for them, or commissions to them, or favors, and they'll do it if they like you. So you want to be interested in them, you want to be human, and you want to add value to their lives, which is a common theme. All right, so if you have somebody you worked with, ask them what it would take to get a referral. If you want people to build a partnership, find people who have aligned interests, aka the same type of customers as you, but not competing, right? Those are some things you could do. Another thing you could do is go out and reach out to people and ask for a testimonial, right? Because you really want to get those if you have them. It helps a lot. Okay. Now we're going to talk, lastly, we're going to talk about networking and partnerships. This is kind of like the last phase of your journey in terms of developing your business. Partnership networking is like lubricant for your career, and it adds up. And partnerships are collaborations, and they're win-win. Okay. Networking is basically the act of physically or digitally entering spaces that hold a group of your target clients or referrers, and you're connecting with them for future work opportunities, right? So that could be a conference, that could be a workshop, that could be an event, anywhere where your target is gathered in one place is an opportunity to network, right? I think a lot of times what I've noticed, especially online on Facebook and stuff, is the videographers tend to just hang out in the videography rooms. Guess what? You're not getting any work out of those. You're getting advice, but if you, for instance, work with dentists, you should be hanging out in the room where dentists work, right? And that's how you're going to end up getting networking with your clients. So you can go on Meetup, Eventbrite, Facebook. You can follow organizations that are in your industry and see what events they put on. And you can even start an event. I've done workshops, I've done talks, I've done stuff like that. And that's all kind of led up to networking and meeting more people. Networking could also apply to social media. Let's just add that. So just engaging with people, which is part of the marketing stuff I talked about, but it could be considered networking as well. Let me just change this color. Okay. So how do you tell if an event is right for you? Well, does your perfect customer avatar appear at this event? That's number one. Are they there? That's really important to know. If not, well, are there people who can refer you to your perfect customer? Are there networkers? Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. As a wedding videographer, if I went to a convention for other wedding videographers, I'm not going to get customers. I might get work as like a collaboration, like that goes into partnership, like maybe being hired as a camera op or something. But most of the time it doesn't work that way. So if I went to instead a conference where for wedding planners, guess what? They might actually be super networkers that could refer me to a lot of business, right? Because they're already doing that work for themselves. So that's why, like, you can ask yourself, does complementary service providers appear that you can work with to obtain the same perfect customer? So again, a wedding planner is going after the same exact customers as I am. And so networking with them could be very beneficial for me. Working a photographer could be very beneficial because when that customer asks them about video, then they might be able to refer me, right? Like if the answer is no to all three of those things, you are at the wrong event. So grab a drink, enjoy your time there if you want, or go home, because you're not going to get clients out of that. So it's not networking anymore. Okay. Now, when you're networking, the key before you talk to anybody is know thyself. You need to know your backstory, how you got where you're at, why you're there, know your value, meaning like know what you do for people, what results you help get people, right? And what services you offer, right? If they ask. I was just in the airport the other day, and the other day as in yesterday, it feels like a long time ago. And I was buying a water, and then the lady at the cash register was like, we're just talking casually, and she was like, oh, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I'm doing video. And she's like, oh, you do video? She's like, do you do translation services? And I'm like, I can, if the price is right. I could, like, she's like, oh, well, I need somebody to she has some business where she's like, I need somebody who does like captions on the bottom of the screen. I'm like, oh, that's easy. So I'm like, here's my email, my website, and who knows if she's gonna reach out. A lot of times they don't, but the point is, I know my services, right? So I'm not like, I don't know, maybe. It's like I could clearly do that. Or if she said, hey, like I need a photographer, then I'm just like, I don't do that. I could refer you to somebody, and it's just in general, know how you help people. Just know what you do and why it's valuable for people, right? Now, when we're talking about people, you generally are going to be talking to directors of marketing, owners, or C-level people like a CEO or CMO or something like that, right? Those are the people that are going to hire you. Those are three types of people that hire videographers in general, for the most part. Now, you want to make sure you talk in their manner. We went over a lot of this in the second week, I think, but just to recap, you want to make sure that you are matching their energy. and ask more questions than you answer, especially when you're just networking with people. It's a little different than like running a consultation where it's like 80-20 for them first and then 80-20 for you at the end. What I found in networking in general, just mostly put it on them because you want to get to know them and get as much intel. And it's statistically shown that even if they know nothing about you, when if they talk about themselves enough, they're going to like you at the end. You know, and then a great way tactically, like once you've talked with somebody, you know, after you've learned about them, offer something you're going to send to them to follow up. So if you know, because you in networking, by the way, this takes time. Like networking relationships can be months and months before something comes out of it. So like, you want to keep contact, and an excuse to get their contact information is to just tell them you're going to send them something. Like, hey, oh, what we talked about, there's an article I thought of, I could send you or something, or is it okay to keep in touch in case I have some ideas that you might like, you know what I mean? Just ask for one form, either their phone or their social media or an email, like whatever they seem to be vibing towards, you know what I mean? And then just follow up with them. And then it's always good to leave with the promise that you could follow up on, like you're going to check out their stuff, you're going to send something to them, is basically the two things. And then you follow up and boom, now you're building relationships. So you might add them on Facebook, you might add them on LinkedIn, and then you start that whole marketing journey that we talked about in terms of engagement and asking questions and offering value, right? Now, how do you understand if somebody is potentially worth your time when you're networking? Well, do they demonstrate a need for your services? Do they understand the value of those services? Do they have money? Do they have marketing budget, AKA? Are they demonstrating ways that they can provide value too? If they don't have money, are they offering something else? Do they have connection? Do they have, you know, a cool, interesting opportunity? Like me doing the free video for that guy that was friends with Steph Curry. Well, you know, he brought me on to these other events and talked about other events he had going on and, you know, was providing me value. Now, how to understand if they're worth your time is similar, but a little different from just knowing if they're, you know, like they might demonstrate this stuff, but they still might not be the right customer for you, right? So you have to probe a little bit more, which is just knowing like, what do they do? What does their company do? How long they've been in business? Do they have employees? What are the goals? What are the recent milestones? What do they do to get customers? Why are they at the event? Like these are the things you could ask to just figure out like, oh, this is going to be somebody that leads into work or referring me to work. Okay, now partnerships as opposed to networking, you know, partnering is basically just like an alliance, right? And the purpose is to pursue capturing the same client or keeping the same type of client happy, right? So the best way to build a partnership is just make a list of partners you want to have, make sure you have a portfolio, offer them value and a structure, you know, ask them for a test run to build a relationship, and then just start nurturing it and build a relationship. So offering value and structure is like, you know, let's say you reach out to a motion graphics artist, or let's say an agency, right? And you go to the agency and you say, hey, like, I'm sure you got your own production company and you're doing this, but hey, if you have some event that's smaller budget that you normally don't want to do because it's below your budget, but you just don't want to, you want to make sure your client's happy, like I'm happy to do that for you. And I'll give you a fee from that, right? A commission or something. So you're basically making sure you're offering value, and then you're giving them a structure to be able to reach out and make it real. So step one of that is just make a list of desired partners, you know, top 50 partners, research on what they offer already, study them and be able to describe their customers, because that's going to make them trust you more. And then if you understand their customers, they're going to be willing to allow you to work with them potentially, right? But also you have to make sure you have a portfolio and a reel, PDF. Are you looking spiffy, on brand, like you feel good about yourself, that you've done the work, even if you're beginning, like at least you presented yourself as well as possible from the position that you're in. And if not, if you don't feel that great, like, then what are you going to do to make it a little bit better, you know, especially if it's your reel. Now, when it comes to offering value and structure, you do have to know what services and products you offer, because they're going to ask you. And then you could think of some offer that's really valuable to them. Like, hey, like, I'll do this and I'll give you a percentage, or I'll quote my price, and then you could charge as much extra as you want and make more money if you need to, right? Now, how partnerships work in general, either you white label each other, meaning like, let's say I hire a graphic designer, instead of my client knowing that it's a different, like the graphic designer is a subcontractor, he works for me, or he's subcontracted through me, and he's just performing a function. It's not like, you know, Henry production company and, you know, Louis graphic design company are both invoicing your client, right? It's just coming from you. When you're white labeling, you have to make sure that they know how much your cost is. You don't have to actually, but you have to, not your cost, but it's really more your cost to them. I'm sorry. So they have to know what you're going to charge, right? And a good way to build a partnership is just allow them to sell it for more if they want to upsell, because it's not your job to squeeze their client for everything if they have the relationship. So for instance, if I have an agency coming to me and they're like, hey, I'm going to bring you this, I need this commercial done. And I'm like, okay, well, it's going to cost 50,000. If they turn around and they tell their client like, hey, the commercial is going to cost 100,000, you can't be mad at them, because that's their relationship. And maybe they're better at sales, or maybe they just, you know, have a better idea. That's why you need to calculate accurately what it is your cost is, so that, you know, even if you only get that, you're happy with it, right? So it's better not to be greedy. Because then if they know that they can make more money on top, and you're just, because it's fair for you, because if you're quoting the price you want and you're, number one, either getting the job, or two, walking away from the job, then it's totally fair, right? Because you also have the power to say no if they can't give you what you want. Also, they retain the client if they're referring it. If they just refer the client to, you could give, like, let's say a 10% commission standard up to like 100K maybe. Turns out to be a lot more money. Like, as you go up in the budget, you probably lower the commission, just because, like, you know, 10% of $1 million would be like ridiculous, right? Like that might be like all your profit. So that's just a starting point. But, you know, if it's like a $1,500 job or something, and you give somebody like $150, like that's totally fair. You see what I'm saying? Also, once you have a partner, you want to invest some sweat and help develop ideas as their preferred partner, and help them land jobs and stuff like that, right? So for my the agency, one of the agencies I work with, I've done pitches for them that never got landed, but, you know, if they wouldn't even be able to pitch it if I didn't create the pitch for them, right? I gave them some more ideas on campaigns they're working on how they could upsell the client. And in some cases, if you're the white labeled service, you might have to go in-house with like they'll give you an email or something like that. That happens more like once you've really built a relationship and they trust you and stuff. But especially like with agencies and stuff, like you can't be responding from your business email, because then they might freak out. The client might even freak out. And so, you know, you might get an email, your own email. Another thing you could do is ask for a test run. Is basically, if they have any projects you could lend a hand on. You could do behind the scenes work for them. You could focus on easy deliverables, like, hey, I'll just do like a, you know, behind the scenes video, or I'll do like I'll re-edit some of this content for social media, whatever it is. You know, things with low ROI, meaning requirements, meaning it's easy for them to get in, like they're not going to have to spend a lot to get something out of it. And it's just, you know, it's about showing your communication and responsiveness. Like, when you're doing like a little test run, is you're really just showing your work ethic and how good you are and why they should give you more opportunity, right? And then once you built a relationship, you definitely want to nurture it. You want to proactively think of ways to add value to them. Always answer right away, because especially if you're like, their relationship depends on you answering, you have to answer quickly. You have to be there for them, so they have comfort and they know that when they need you, you're there for them, because they're not going to hire you or refer you work if, for instance, they send you an email asking for a quote and you take a week to make that quote, and then now they made their client wait a week, and so they're gonna worry about that, you know. And also try to be their guru, meaning like in terms of your services, be the best at it and always give them the best advice. and be the most dependable person that they've ever worked with. That's the number one way to get more work from somebody who is your partner, is be the most dependable person that they've ever worked with. If you can focus your energy on that and achieve that goal, then they will keep giving you business, because in the end, when they're relying on you, the more dependable you are, the higher your stock goes, right? Because especially like when I work really fast for clients, that's a feedback I get, and they give me so much more opportunity, you know? And going back again to communicating early and often, that is super key with a partner. That's just what it is. Now you could partner with peers, right? So for instance, I think, you know, if you have friends that do certain types of work, or let's say you're both shooters or both directors or both can share the workload, then yeah, like build those partnerships too, because you'll need them like to get jobs done, right? Just be friendly to people in your network, your Facebook group or your local community that, you know, you want to partner with, that are your peers, and you can reach out to them, meet up with them, get to know them. Again, offer them help or value, and ask if you could refer work to them. So I'll reach out to people and I'll say, hey, is it okay to put you on my list so that, you know, when I need like a cinematographer, I can reach out to you. And they're like, yeah, totally. All right, so how to increase your network and therefore your net worth over time is that you write a new Dream 100. Make sure that you're going after these people by networking in the right places. If you offer free work to influential people, that will increase your network, because you're going to reach new levels of respect and stuff. Make sure you document the process of your growth and stuff like that, and get testimonials from all these people that you work with. So some action items you could do is look up some events that you want to be a part of, probably virtual. You know, write up 50 businesses you want to partner with, reach out to them like 10 by 10 and just start getting responses, see if you get any responses. You know, you could write a new Dream 100 of the highest net worth individuals or brands you want to work with and approach them. The main thing is you want to approach, like once you've figured out who you are and what you do, you want to try and get people to help you by referring you business or partnering with you. But this stage of the networking is really, or this type of networking is really, again, takes more time to get results because it's like a long-term play. So therefore, for you guys setting up your businesses, you need to just be focused mostly on sales and marketing yourself. And as you start getting work and you build your experience and stuff, then you can go into the more, okay, let me like network and things like that. Because when you're like launching your business, you don't really have as much time or leeway to wait like 6 months for a relationship to pay off. You know what I mean? You want more immediate payoffs. So, but it doesn't hurt to just be casually part of events, especially like a Facebook group is a great way to just network with people like while you're building your business. So, all right, there we have it. That is literally the challenge. You know, you could download the slide decks from the whole thing. You know, now we can do some Q&A, and like I said, next week we'll be going into a case study for a commercial as our bonus week. So do you have any questions?
I don't have a question about the topic we've covered today, but I was actually just wanting to run something by you if that was,
Sure.
if that was
Let's go
okay
for
for
it.
time.
Absolutely.
So I picked up my first unpaid client, which is super exciting.
Hey, great job. Good.
It's just for a not-for-profit organization, so a children's charity. So I contacted them on the premise of doing some free video work for them, which they were super stoked about.
Yep.
I started shooting some stuff for them, and speaking to this sort of small team that runs it, they're really excited to do quite a bit more video work.
Mm-hmm.
They actually asked me, or they mentioned to me, one of the guys mentioned that they actually might have some sort of budget in relation to video. They want to keep me on, and they'd like to get quite a little bit of work happening. Even though I said I'm happy with free stuff because they're a charity, we want to charge kind of thing. But I'm happy to speak to them about the topic of a budget if they've mentioned, if they've brought it up. I was wondering if you had any ideas of how I might approach that with them in terms of the conversation. Like, I'm not phased about it. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk about it if I just said, you mentioned last time that you about a budget, and I'm happy to stay on with you guys.
Yeah, first of all, you shouldn't be shy about asking if they have budget, because the other thing about nonprofits is they have to spend their money every year. Because a lot of nonprofits is if they don't spend that money, they lose it next year. So you actually want them to spend their marketing budget so that they could even increase it potentially. Did you already do the job yet?
I've done one shoot so far. Yeah, but they've
like
definitely
fully delivered.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and so they're happy with it. So then what you want to do is you just reach out to them and say, hey, I really enjoyed working with you. You know, working with nonprofits is an area that I'm considering expanding on. You mentioned that you might have a budget. Like, I'm just curious, what type of project or campaign would you be able to allocate like a marketing budget to? And then don't focus on the dollar amount, just focus on what is it that they want to do, what the campaign is, what the idea is. And then once you do that, then you could say, oh, well, why don't we develop this idea, and I'll come up with some creative ideas, or you could even just ask at that point, like, well, what would you want to spend for this budget, for this campaign to execute it? And then they'll tell you a number, and then you just start talking about deliverables. So it's very natural. So you just basically let them know, like, hey, you mentioned, especially they mentioned there's a budget. So that you want to just step one, iterate, like, you know, your experience working with them. You might want to mention, like, I want to keep working with you. Just say, hey, I would love to continue our relationship and build on it more. I would love to come up with some ideas on how to help you achieve XYZ goal. And so I'm curious, like, what were you thinking of allocating some budget towards? Like, what kind of projects, you know? Cool. And just let them kind of tell you, and then you can work with that. But hey, great work, man. You're already doing the steps.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. That's a good question. Neil, did you have a question?
I'm still trying to think of one. I keep losing my train of thought.
It's probably because it's really late for you.
Yeah.
But you plugged through, which is so impressive, man. Look, you guys can reach out to me anytime you have questions, first of all. So it's not like even after this challenge is over that I'm going to just disappear or something. So, you know, I think you will have a lot of questions as you're going along in your journey, because, you know, I'm just teaching like principles and overviews and stuff. But once you start doing it, then of course you're going to have questions and stuff. So, so yeah, don't feel like you have to ask me a question right now. But if you have more questions, Luke, go ahead. Maybe Eric is still out, but
no, I'm back. I came back a while ago. I just
back.
didn't want to interrupt the flow.
Okay,
anything.
Cool. Did you have any questions, Eric?
Not really. I mean, I'm still working on a lot of things. I've got a few people I'm kind of in talks with, and people who are interested. So I'm just kind of every week or so, just being like trying to touch base with them, and it's like, hey, how's everything going? You know, I've been, watching your work, and just kind of trying to keep in contact. The thing that I still struggle, I wouldn't say struggle with, but the thing I'm just really trying to improve on and get better at, it's kind of going back to what, your the 2 weeks ago now. And part of this is just the outreach and the marketing. Just knowing where to find the right clients. And I know it takes time and practice. It's not an overnight thing, but that's absolutely. I'm probably going to reach out to you a little bit soon about like just making sure I'm wording things, like how to word things, how to make sure people get, it gets people's attention, and the best way to convey value.
Absolutely. And it's definitely a process. So that's why, feedback is important. Feedback is actually super important for growth. So definitely that's why you want to reach out to me. I think what would be nice is for the next week session, since it's the last one, like, I really want to make sure that you guys are sent off on the right foot. So you might want to think this week, like, about summarizing your business, like where you're at, like where you want to go, any questions you might have about that process, so we can at least kind of give you some roadmap items, some action items, and then that way, as you continue your journey, it has more focus and direction, and you can just reach out to me to help you, like, along the way.
Yeah, and I've also just a heads up, Henry, I'm going to be reaching out to you in the next couple of days. There's an aspect of my business I definitely would love to get your feedback on, because I think we chatted about it a little while, like a couple of weeks ago, that like it works. I did fix my it's about my website. Like I fixed it. I don't know how it got broken, but I fixed it up, but I'm still not super happy with it. So I'm not sure like what I should do to like improve it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Just follow up. But again, we are coming back next week anyway, so we're still talking. Any questions? Any other questions before we close out?
Not really a question, but I don't know, more so just appreciation, because I think I've already got what I want out of this, which is just the mentality shift of, okay, cool, this is how you find clients, this is how you approach it, and this is how you justify everything that you do. Because like I won't lie, with a lot of the marketing strategy stuff, that's stuff like I'm already doing at uni, or I could just search the terms, read a shitload of books. But it's the actual mental approach that I was struggling with. And you've helped with that.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. That's great feedback. Thank you, guys. I always tell people, and it's still so true, is like every growth that I've ever had that was significant in business was always mentality, just getting the mentality right. Because it is like you said, you can, like everything I've taught, you could Google and find that and much more, like tactically, right? But it's the mentality that changes everything about how you approach it, and it makes it easier. And so I think because, you know, this is a specific industry, you need the right mentality for this industry, because you know, the mentality of somebody who's like, let's say I don't know, online marketing salesperson is different than the mentality required for us, which is we're in a service industry, right? And we're kind of straddling different duties, from video production to video marketing and all that stuff. So yeah, there'll definitely be more to come, and I'll keep doing workshops and stuff. So thanks for the feedback. Sweet. Well, I guess I will end it a little bit early, but I will be back again next weekend. I'll send a confirmation, and after that, the Facebook group is always there anyways, so you can always follow up. That's the best place to share your progress and kind of ask if you have questions that could benefit the group. That's always a great place to put it. But, you know, if you want to just privately ask me questions, obviously I'm here too. So, all right, sweet. I'll end it, and thank you very much.
Thanks,
See you later.